Hello and welcome to Critical Political Thinking. My name's Corey Camasso, and this is episode number 3 on our continued election coverage for 2020. This episode is going to be what the debate should have been. This will go over both candidates, their political platforms, and their ability to stick to those platforms based on their political reputations, as well as the difference between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as far as their platforms go as well. So stay tuned so that you can understand exactly who it is that you are voting for, or if you're undecided, who it is that fits your best needs, which is, again, the purpose for voting. So please stay tuned and welcome to Critical Political Thinking. Hello and welcome to our continued coverage on the election 2020. Today we're going to be covering both candidates, their platforms, how they've stuck to those platforms in their political careers, as well as, being that Joe Biden is of the age he is and Donald Trump the age he is. However, we already know what we get with Mike Pence. However, the difference between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are quite substantial, and we're going to go over a lot of those details because some of those details are the very reason people are in fact voting for Joe Biden. So let's kick back and relax and let me explain to you just exactly who is running for president in 2020 and that debacle of a debate, frankly, when we should have been understanding the platforms and we should have been able to identify and understand what each candidate stands for and an ability to rebut and go against what they've actually done. Instead, what we had was a poorly moderated debate by Chris Wallace, one of, in my opinion, the worst Fox News analysts or journalists, whatever you want to call them. But frankly, we're not here to throw mud. We're here to give the American people the information that they deserve. So let's divide this into the 6 categories that the debate should have been divided into, and that's going to be your economy, the climate, healthcare, immigration, race wars, obviously, demographics and whatnot, and then guns and violence. So those are the 6 categories that I feel this election has been based on, and we here at Politicor News Network and Critical Political Thinking have put together as a great base for why you should be choosing a candidate at this point and the way our world is working at this point. So first, let's start with the economy, because the economy is so directly related to the current COVID status, the way that these candidates are basing their economic plans or based around restructuring and rebuilding from COVID. And then from there, they're going to work on their tax plans and so on and so forth. So first, let's talk about their COVID response and rebuild plans. So Joe Biden, you have someone that wants to maintain the closures, and not in a sense that permanently, but in a sense until everything is done, until the virus is completely eradicated, until there's a vaccine or proper therapeutics. We shouldn't properly fully open. We should maintain these social distancing limits, keep the 6 feet, keep the masks, maintain a mask national mandate, which to this date is still not something that has been implemented. The choice is still with the American people, as American choices should be. Now, as far as where they stand with the balance, that's kind of hard to say. But what Trump wants to do is reopen. He wants to get the country fully back open, to open all positions and leave the judgment up to the consumer. So if you don't feel that that product is worth you may possibly catching COVID, or you don't feel that they're practicing proper COVID blocking, for lack of better words, I'm drawing a blank. COVID preparedness and preventative measures. There we go. If you're not pleased with their preventative measures, then you don't go to that place. But he really does feel that the American people should have that the democracy to choose. Not Democrat, I have to be careful what words I use in an election here. But the right to choose and the right to make that decision on your own, because he is assuming that we are responsible adults, capable of voting, capable of doing a multitude of things. Therefore, we should have the ability to decide what we do with our bodies, as far as masks go. Now, what are the advantages to keeping things closed? So you have the advantage of perhaps you don't pass away from a virus that is only affecting, 0.02%. So 99.8% of people that catch COVID will live from COVID. So what the Democrats are implying is that we should maintain closures and focus on that minority, if you will, for lack of better words again, that smaller demographic of the weak and the elderly and whatnot. And we should continue on this path. Now, what are the detriments to that? And what has Trump seen as a problem with that? Well, that falls down onto depression, that falls down onto suicide, and that falls down onto obesity and other health measures. So we have to take into account all of these other things, and nobody is doing that, okay? What people fail to realize is they're saying, oh my God, there's over 200,000 deaths because of COVID. No, there's not. And here's why that is factually incorrect. While they are associated with COVID, that is the factual information. They are associated with COVID. The deaths are associated with COVID, but they are not primarily because of COVID. So what I'm getting at is last year, the influenza was associated with almost as many deaths, that 200,000, almost as many deaths, because of the simple fact that it was associated with major underlying health issues that lead to death, aka heart disease, aka old age, aka dementia, a multitude of things. Now you take those numbers from last year, the statistics from 2019, and compare them to 2020, and what you will find is a substantial decrease in the other leading contributing factors to death. So the primary cause of death has decreased in every single category. Why do you think that is? Because the hospitals are associating them with COVID to make a profit. It's a fact that they are getting paid more if these are labeled as a COVID-related death for study purposes, for the cost of their blood, all of it. So it's almost in their best advantage to, in a sense, when someone passes away, get them COVID. I mean, I don't even know if that's a possibility, but what I'm getting at is simply, it's in the hospital's best advantage. And I'm not here to throw misinformation, so I do want to stray away from that. But what I'm getting at is there are a million ways to mix with those numbers. And what we need to understand is that they are saying that there are 7,000 deaths directly related to COVID. So, taking the suicide, taking the obesity, taking the depression, taking the businesses lost, taking the fact that most of these smaller businesses will never recuperate, that's going to destroy the economy in the long run. That's going to kill it way more than the 0.2% that are passing away from COVID. Is it really justified? No. Is it something that we need to maintain? No. Do I really feel that Donald Trump has this one right in reopening the country? Because the numbers are there. Yeah, people are passing away. People pass away from the flu every year. People pass away from something every day. That's the way it works. We're born to die. But we can't continue to hide. We've learned what we needed to learn. We've maintained social distancing. We now know how to practice. And it's up to us at this point to move forward. But we as Americans have to move forward. The rest of the world's moving forward. We're falling behind. So with that said, that is where COVID has now affected our economy to the point where now that's almost their whole political platform. The only difference is going to be your tax platforms, and that's where you have Joe Biden focusing on the middle class, giving up to $7,000 rebate for families of up to 6 people total, 4 children and 2 adults. So yeah, you can get up to $7,000 back. Now, let's do the math. Businesses then get taxed up to 70, 80, 90%, depending on how big this business is. They can, after they pay their personal taxes and their business taxes, that individual owner can be paying upwards of 70, 80% in taxes. Do you really think he's going to take that big of a loss? Or do you think he's going to pass those losses along to the consumer in much higher astronomical numbers than your measly $7,000 bonus that you're possibly going to get if you have 4 children and 2 adults? But they're not explaining that to you people. So you got to take into account, do you really want the way things have gone where you're doing better? More Americans had jobs before COVID. The stock market was booming. If you wanted to work and you wanted to make something of yourself in a Trump economy, it was a possibility. You can't say that it wasn't, because there's a million factual, statistical proof that you're just absolutely incorrect with that. So with that said, it's very important to understand that, yeah, a $15 minimum wage for some people would be fantastic. But at the same time, so would going to college or learning a trade, and then getting that job anyway. So there's two ways to do everything. And it almost seems as if the left is trying to appease a voter base. They'll never follow through with it because they financially can't. And they're just simply shouting things to appease. I mean, even Donald Trump or Barack Obama stated that he wanted to jack up the minimum wage, but it didn't happen in all 8 years of his presidency. And guess who was his vice president? Joe Biden. So he had his chance to do this, and it still didn't happen. So it's important to understand that under Joe Biden, all of the things that he's claiming he's going to have done or done, other than possibly wearing a mask all the time, he had time to do it and it hasn't been completed. But under Donald Trump, the stock market was at its highest ever until COVID hit. You know, the economy was fantastic. Unemployment, all-time low. I mean, the facts are there for the economy. So if you're voting based on economy, it's very important to understand that in the end of the day, regardless of the tax breaks from the Democrats, the Republican side does benefit the world or the United States better through the economy. Now, climate is something that Donald Trump has been hammered on, and rightfully so. Donald Trump does not necessarily, it's not that he doesn't believe in climate change. What he doesn't believe in is the severity of climate change. He understands that, yes, the global ice caps are melting, CO2 emissions, green gas emissions, all of these things are leading to a very bad future. But what he also understands is we are not the only country in this world. As a matter of fact, while we are the highest in we are the highest in greenhouse gases, we're not the highest in CO2 emissions. And CO2 emissions do high farther damage. And that's China. China leads in CO2 emissions. Do you really think that China gives a rat's behind about climate change? Because I'll assure you, they care about commerce, economy, and ruling the world. That's the Chinese motive. So what Donald Trump understands and realizes that in his 8 years of presidency, he is going to focus on fixing certain things. For instance, the Save the Seas Act is one of the greatest things to happen to our oceans in a very long time. He has literally dedicated, even past his presidency, guaranteed monies to fund removing plastics from the ocean, to remove garbage from the ocean. And this not only benefits sea life, this benefits us. I mean, wild sea bass caught every day, trout caught every day, all the things that are caught in wild every day that have plastics broken down into their stomachs from, digesting it, thinking it's plankton and whatnot. This is all hurting humans as well. I mean, there's carcinogens in those plastics. That's a leading cause of cancer, believe it or not. So it's very important to understand the Save Our Seas Act was a fantastic, I guess you can say, ecological advancement for the Trump administration. As well as they focused on the clean land and expanding the national parks. He basically made the parks so much larger by preserving a portion of land. He sets aside a specific dedicated amount of land that no other president has matched other than Teddy Roosevelt in the past. And he has literally focused on that from day one. While he did pull us out of the Paris Accord, that's simply because he realized that the only countries in that were smaller countries that didn't even have a footprint nearly as large as ours. So what they're doing wasn't even close to what we were doing. On top of that, we were losing so much money through natural resources that our country naturally has. And that's something that you have to understand. Joe Biden wants to do away with fracking. He wants to limit fracking to almost nil to nothing. Even in contrast to Kamala, we'll get to that later. But what I'm getting at is, frankly, the Land and Water and Conservation Act signed by Donald Trump added $9.5 billion to the economic structure of the ecological systems. So basically what he is doing is focusing on what we as Americans can handle individually. Because yes, it's good to be part of the Paris Accord and whatnot, but unless every single solitary country, including those who are farther emission spreaders such as China and India and Russia, all of those countries are huge. Until everyone is involved, we are at a financial disadvantage so much greater than that ecological disadvantage that it makes no sense to advance ourselves to that level and to donate or dedicate that much resource and money to something that we can't control as a whole. So until everyone's involved, what he is focusing on is improving the American structure and improving the American country. And yes, he is allowing fracking, and yes, he is doing oil drilling, Donald Trump. And the reason he feels that's necessary is to bolster America, to bring America back, to make America great again, to stop relying on Saudi for oil, to stop relying on China for product, so we can do things here in America ourselves. We have to build ourselves back up. We are losing our position in this world. And until we restructure and pull our debts together, we're never going to be a great country. And Donald Trump understands that, because America and most countries are businesses before anything else. And yes, the climate is super important. And Joe Biden, frankly, he wants to put $1.7 trillion, almost as much as they put almost half of the full first CARES Act bill, into the economy, and to removing and eliminating greenhouse gases by 2050. It's theoretically impossible. Why would you want to get rid of planes, cars, automobiles, all of that, and force into a whole new structure, frankly, when no other country is going to do that? Do you think we don't get emissions from other countries? Do you think other countries, CO2 emissions and whatnot aren't going to affect our environment? You're nuts to think that. So yes, it's good to do our part. And while we are doing our part, he's not doing his part. But what he pulled us out of are things that are unfair and that didn't give us a benefit. They were far less beneficial than they were positive. And while, for lack of better words, the tree huggers, in a sense, and the Greenpeace and all those people are going to obviously differ with me, because Earth comes first to them. And Earth should come first. We are here. We use all of its resources, but we need to understand we need to bolster our country. And a president's job is to do that. And that's why it's important to understand we're hiring the president. Let the EPA and all those companies and all of the government agencies and our state representatives and all of those people focus on what we need individually. But let the president focus on what's most important for the advancement of our country. Now, healthcare is huge. And there couldn't be a bigger difference in healthcare. Obamacare and Joe Biden wants to focus on Obamacare, to reinvest into Obamacare and expand Obamacare to include everyone. He wants to give universal health care, in a sense, and give everyone the same level of care. That's good and bad. And it's good for people that have nothing, but it's terrible for people that work for a living and are willing to put into their health care and care about their job and care about their family and want to choose their provider and choose their physician and choose their level of care. And frankly, under Joe Biden, you will lose that choice if they continue through Obamacare. You will be forced to pick from selected plans, and your choices will be limited based on the fact that the government will be adding in funds for it. So therefore, your choices are limited. Doctors will limit referrals. It's happened in the past. Check out Canada if you don't believe me. They have universal health care. They hate it. 3-hour waiting lines to get into a doctor's office. And it is unfortunate that some people don't get health care, but they do. And they'll get their health care through Access Welfare. All of those programs are still available under Donald Trump's plan. The only difference is they become accountable. They become accountable in a sense that they now have to look for a job. They now have to try and make themselves something. And that is where the left is pushing to that lower class vote, in a sense, to try and get stuff for free. And I assure you, you won't get anything for free. The level of care you will get will be so detrimental, it probably would be better to take care of yourself at some times. So please understand that right now, the way things are going, it's better. You have a choice of a doctor, you have a choice of a pharmacy, you have a choice of your everything. And choice is so important to the American way. That is what America was built on, choice. The words land of the free have been so misinterpreted by the left in assuming that everything should be free or it should be automatically assumed to you. That's not what that meant. That means you're free to choose, and you're free to choose to work and make something of yourself and purchase that perfect healthcare plan for you and your family. And yes, healthcare has to come down. And under Trump, it has come down. Pharmacy prices, I don't know if you've noticed, he has got diabetes medication down to almost nothing, because under Obamacare, where you have centralized systems, they were able to jack that up and the healthcare plans took it over. But Big Pharma hates Donald Trump. Why do you think that is? Why would a big giant company like that hate somebody if he was benefiting the people? Because he's really benefiting the people. They hate him because he's costing them money, because he's giving the people the discounts. If another country gets medication for $2 and we're paying $100, he said no more. We either get it for what they're getting for, or we'll make it here. And that's bringing products back to America, and that's making America better again. So that's something you need to understand. Now, here comes my favorite, immigration. This is where Donald Trump was labeled a racist, simply because he wants America to be America, not a free-for-all. Joe Biden wants to decriminalize border crossings. Is that good or bad? Well, it's good if you're not from this country and you want to get over here. It's bad because, number one, we're now allowing open doors. That eliminates the reason for ICE to enforce stringent border policies. We're now going to be allowing drugs over in, higher quantities. Once you have an open door policy, what you're doing is you're allowing anyone and everything to walk through the door without a vetting process. All Donald Trump wants to do is build a wall, fortify our country, make America first. We're not saying you can't come into America. Donald Trump has not once said he does not want a single person in this country. He wants everyone to come into this country, but he wants you to come through the door, not through the window that you smashed. If you come through the door, you'll be welcomed with open arms. You'll understand how the country works. You'll get a better grasp of the American language. You'll get a better grasp of the economic system, how the dollar works, how to get a job, how taxes work, and how to be a better citizen in this country. Because this country is so different from every other country. Why would you want to just sneak in and try to make it when you can go through the door and have every avenue opened the proper way? That is the Donald Trump way. Not open borders, not less deportation, and not, if they make it in, well, let's hear their case. If they make it through the door, we already heard their case, and we know who they are, we know why they're here, and we are welcoming them with open arms, but now they're a citizen. They're a contributing citizen. They're paying taxes. They're paying into the systems that they're taking from, that they've already taken from through the immigration process. That's important. Do you know how much money we lose in the immigration process that Joe Biden will literally increase? And where's all this extra money for healthcare and all that coming from if we now have all the money lost through immigration? Now we come to the race wars. This is not another fun one to talk about, but it's also very important. It's going to go into the sixth and final, which is guns and violence. So we have the race wars. You have Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Donald Trump has been labeled a racist, and Joe Biden has been labeled an anti-racist. Okay? Joe Biden has been caught on camera stating, I would never want my children to go to a jungle with those, it'd be like a jungle sending my kid to school with blacks. Factually stated that, on record, on camera. Poor kids are just as good and just as smart as white kids. Oh, okay, that's not racist. You ain't black if you ain't voting for me. No, that's not racist. No. Passed the 1994 crime bill, which literally incarcerated more black fathers than anything, literally destroyed that whole generation of fatherhood. Not just fatherhood, but most black men were sent away for minimal crimes, minimal drug-related crimes. That was Joe Biden. So you're saying he's there to benefit you. How is a simple marijuana offense jailing? Donald Trump doesn't think so. And yet you seem to think that he's 100% for the blacks. Donald Trump, however, more jobs than ever, gave you an opportunity to make something of yourselves, to be the American dream. What else do you want when you come to America? Do you want a free-for-all? Do you want to do nothing? Well, then you can go under the Obama plan and the Biden plan, the Obamacare. But even under Biden's new plan, you can go under that. You'll get free education that you probably won't use because you didn't work for it. You don't understand how important, how much money it actually took to build that education. Chances are, you just don't want it. If you wanted it, you'd already have it, because that's what's great about America. I know so many black, so many Asian, so many Hispanic success stories because all they did was apply themselves. They didn't allow this fake bubble of discrimination and hate to distract them. What they did was they realized America is a fantastic melting pot full of every country, every race, every language, and they used that to their advantage. That's the American dream. That's what we have going on. Before the election, everybody loved Donald Trump. Rappers wanted him in their videos. He was the cool guy. Then all of a sudden, as soon as he went in and drained the swamp and literally made Nancy Pelosi run, you know what happened? They hated him, and they tricked you. And they fooled every single minority into thinking that Donald Trump was a racist by using the build the wall rhetoric, when simply all he was trying to do was fortify the great country you already live in. That wall has nothing to do with you. He never separated his kids, put them in cages. As a matter of fact, Melania Trump cried about it and begged them to be removed. But you have to go through the right channels and the systems of law. That's why America's great. And that's why it will maintain its greatness. Guns and violence have really taken over America. And I don't even want to say guns, I want to say violence. Violence is what has taken over America. And fame through social media is what's taken over America. You know, you didn't see all these school killings. They didn't happen. Guns have been around forever, but mass school shootings didn't. Do you want to know why? Because they weren't publicized. They weren't made into folk heroes. They weren't made into these characters from a comic book that make them feel as if their life was worthwhile when they had nothing going for them. Instead, what we need to focus on is mental health. These kids need help, okay? Not being put into a social media limelight. Social media has literally caused this gun war to go into something that it's not. You know, people always say, oh, I want to ban assault machine guns, assault rifles. No illegal gun in the United States goes brrr. You can't do it. It's against the law. Single pull of a trigger, single shot. What is the difference if that bullet is coming out at the same speed if the rifle is this long or this small? Well, do you want to know the difference? Let me tell you the difference. If it's this long, you can see it coming. If it's this long, you can't conceal it. If it's this long, it's still going to do just as much damage as this long. So then why is it that you want to ban assault rifles? Now, you say they've been used in most mass killings, and frankly they have, and it's not because of their size. It's simply because the sling, the convenience, and the ability to maintain other weapons. It's just that they're usually killed before they're able to use those other weapons. In the case of Las Vegas, he needed a long rifle because you can't really mount a scope to a handgun and the accuracy is not there. But in most mass killings, they're close quarters. A handgun would actually probably do more damage. But that's just it. People don't understand guns. What we really need is a more stringent background policy. That's what Donald Trump's going for. He's not trying to ban assault rifles. He's not trying to take legal weapons for protection away from people. What he's simply trying to do is add to making sure the people that get them have passed a mental background check, have gone through the proper channels and haven't slipped through the cracks of the sheriff's department, because the sheriffs are the ones that handle most firearms licenses. See, what we need to understand is better training and professional oversight is what is really necessary, not defunding. If you defund somebody, you're taking away funding from something that's already in need of more. To put someone out there without that specific physical training and to put someone out there in a social needs environment would be asinine. You don't need a social worker. You need a police officer now trained with that social worker skills. That's what you need. And guess what that means? More funding. And that's what Donald Trump stands for. Joe Biden, he stands for, not allowing the majority of these guns to go purchased. He doesn't want any assault rifles on the market, whether they shoot 1 round or 30 rounds. I don't see why that makes a difference. And if you understand how a gun works, you'll know that it really doesn't make much a difference. The difference it does make would actually go to the advantage of the assault rifles. What we really should be working on is limiting handguns and utilizing those handguns with better background checks and expanding the background checks to include the most important thing of all, a mental health check. Donald Trump wants to protect the Second Amendment. Joe Biden wants to limit the Second Amendment by removing assault rifles and putting less funding to the police and more funding to social workers. Just don't see how that's going to help. So those are the 6 cases, and that's where we stand. You have an economy where under Donald Trump it was fantastic. Under Obama it was pretty low. And yes, he did help back from a recession, and he was given a recession to deal with. They didn't really do that great of a job. They didn't hand over a booming economy. Donald Trump turned it into a booming economy by bringing jobs back to America, by increasing the workforce. And if you have a job, you therefore have more money, way more than they'll give you on unemployment. And that's how that extra money is what built this economy to where it's fantastic to have money to invest in the stock market, to have money to invest in new ventures and to build this world. That's what's making America great. The climate's very important, and it's something we need to address, but until the whole world's ready to address it, it's important to focus on America first. Healthcare is very important, but it's also important to have a choice. Don't limit your choices, and don't let those choices be taken away from you. Immigration is one of the most important things that has made America so fantastic and a melting pot that it is. My family's immigrants, your family's probably immigrants, but they came through the door. They didn't come through a broken window. Race is such a very important thing, but we also need to understand race is something you can't change. Why would you limit someone or even bring light to a fact of something that you can't change? If you can't change it, it shouldn't matter. And as far as guns and violence goes in America, the problem is social media and the liberal media's portrayal of it. The fact that they literally idolize these criminals and they criminalize the police, the ones that are actually there to assist us. That's what's turning America backwards, and that's what's turning the violence in America backwards. Now, if through all that you still think that Joe Biden is your choice, that's great. I understand. It just means that everything that worked for me in my world, in my surroundings, didn't work for yours. You know, what worked for our company and our employees didn't cross with yours. So if you still want Joe Biden, that's great. But here's what you need to understand. Joe Biden may not make it his full 4 years. And Kamala Harris has a completely different stance on a few issues. And we're going to go over those really quick. I know we've already taken a lot of your time. But it's important to understand the difference between Biden and Kamala. Because if you're explaining this to your friends or you're a Trump fan and you need to get through to somebody, maybe this will help. So Harris believes in what's called the Green New Deal. By 2021, they want to eliminate all vehicles, all gas emissions. They want to basically eradicate all fossil fuels and go all green energy. It's asinine. It's not going to happen. But that's what her mind is set on, and that's what she plans to focus on. Whereas Joe Biden has a more centralized and a more, I guess you can say, realistic view on his version of it, in the sense that he wants to move it to 2050. He wants to put $1.7 trillion towards that, which is still big, and he wants to have a more climate-based focus. Kamala wants to eliminate all fracking. She does not want us to access our fossil fuels. She would rather us purchase from an outside company and be dependent on an outside country rather than utilize what we have here in our own. Whereas Joe Biden would like to limit the fracking to a very minimal and still depend somewhat on other countries, but still have access to those things. Kamala wants to remove the filibuster in the Senate, which requires 60 people to pass a vote. The reason she wants to remove the filibuster is simply because she wants to do the other thing too, add to the Supreme Court. All she wants to do is bolster her views and bolster her plans, the typical Democratic sneaky way. And also she wants to defund the police. Bottom line, she doesn't want them. She wants the police, but she wants them very low funded, and she wants to really focus on social work and bolstering this and that. Great idea. Might work if you were working at a day camp, for children. But in the real world, come on. So ladies and gentlemen, that's what you have. That is how the debate should have gone down. Donald Trump should have hammered out those issues very well. And Chris Wallace should have asked the proper questions, not softball questions. So we really hope you now understand the true difference on the platforms, where the country stands if they go a certain way. I really appreciate you watching our videos. Please understand we are a non-paid news service. We're not paid for what we do. We do have a conservative bias, as you can clearly tell. And it's not even that it's a conservative bias, it's a realist bias, as I like to say. We base ourselves on fact. And if it's factually better for the United States, I'm going to state it that way. And right now, Republicans are the way. I mean, I was a Democrat. I personally was a lifelong Democrat until Joe Biden and Barack Obama. I was so disgusted by the way things went and how our country took a very bad turn, to the point where I knew that I couldn't allow Hillary Clinton to continue that path, and I needed to regain my health care and regain the stock market. So I gave Donald Trump a chance, and I'm very, very glad I did. I immediately switched to the Republican Party, and I'm glad I did. Basically, they opened my eyes, and Donald Trump opened my eyes to the draining of the swamp. You know, I did follow the liberal media and I believed what I heard. And I was able to really see what it was that I was missing by really following the facts. And that's all we ask you to do here at Critical Political Thinking. That's where we got the name from. Do some critical political thinking. Once again, thank you for watching. We're an unpaid news service. Please like and please subscribe and ring in the notification bell. All three things help us more than anything. We really need to build our community. Please share this video and please ask your friends to like and subscribe as well. It will help us more than you know. If you are a little fortunate and you do have the ability to donate to us, we are accepting donations through Venmo. If you'd like, you can just comment on this video below and we'll share the link. Again, thank you so much for watching our continued election coverage on 2020. This was the policies and this is the way the debate should have gone. And we hope now you have a better understanding on the platform and a little bit of ammunition when you are debating or talking to your friends regarding this election, as I know we all will be doing in the next 30 few days. Thank you very much for watching Critical Political Thinking. My name is Corey Camasso. Stay safe, and God bless America.